in your research. Can you can you talk to us? You mentioned just a little bit about what clean meat is, or cultured meat, or stem cell. What was the other?
Cell-based meat.
Cell-based
Cell-based.
meat. Can you tell us what is that? How does it get made?
Yeah.
Is it
So
cruel? A lot of our listeners who are vegan already want to know. Well, what does it do to the animals?
hmm So it's a really new field. It was just in 2013 that a professor in the Netherlands called Mark Post created the first cell-based or cultured hamburger. And now there are over 30 companies around the world that are developing different types of meat from stem cells. And so the process that's used is taken from the regenerative medicine or cell therapy industry. And essentially, you're taking some cells via a biopsy. In this case, you would be taking them. Let's use a chicken as our example, right? So you would take a small biopsy of cells from a chicken, just like the type of biopsy that you would have if you went to a doctor's office. So it can be done under a local anesthetic and can be pain-free for the animal. Those cells are then taken and purified, and then they're expanded up. So one of the hallmarks of a stem cell is that it can divide many, many times and stay in a state that's undifferentiated. So you can use that ability to take a small number of cells that you took from this biopsy and create millions and billions of them. And so that's the first step of this process, which is often called proliferation. So you're taking a small number of cells and making many, many cells. And you feed the cells nutrients in this solution called cell culture media. You do this inside a big tank called a bioreactor, which if you've been to a microbrewery and you see those big metal tanks in the back, that's basically what this is. So you're growing the cells inside this big tank. Once you have enough of those undifferentiated cells, then you can change the conditions inside that tank and add different ingredients in, and that will cause the cells to change their fate. And in the case of cell-based meat or cultured meat, you're coaxing the cells to become the cells that make up meat, which are primarily muscle, fat, and different types of connective tissue. So this process of taking stem cells and turning them into tissue, this has been done for the last 10, 15 years in the medical industry to make, say, cardiac therapies or neural therapies. And now we're just borrowing this technology and adapting it for the food industry. So it's the end product is meat, just like the meat that you would eat from a slaughtered animal, but it's identical in terms of the cells that are in it, the way it looks, the structure, but there's no slaughtering required. And in fact, you can take one biopsy of cells from an animal and create thousands and thousands of kilos of meat. Ultimately, when this industry is commercial, it is not yet commercial.
Obviously, that's going to do extraordinary things for animals and the environment. But what about our health?
Yeah, it's a great question, right? So essentially it's the same. At least the first products will be the same in that, the nutritional profile of, say, a cell-based hamburger is going to be the same as a hamburger that was taken from a slaughtered cow. However, there's some important differences between the way, say, a hamburger is produced through this process versus industrial animal agriculture. So you don't need antibiotics. Antibiotics are widely used in the industrial animal agriculture system. In fact, there was a report that came out from the UK recently that said that the problem of antimicrobial resistance, which is a lot of that is caused by the overuse of antibiotics in the agricultural industry, is going to be a bigger problem than the climate change problem that we just spoke about. And in the year 2050, they project that antimicrobial resistance will cost the world in the region of $100 trillion to treat and be causing 10 million deaths a year. So this is worse than many of the big diseases that we have today, right? And a lot of this is caused by overuse of antibiotics in humans as well, but that's changing. But a lot of it is caused by the agricultural system. So we can eliminate that. And then a lot of the other issues like foodborne diseases, swine flu, that the spillage of like feces and other waste from these big, farms into streams and things, causing eutrophication. All of that disappears with cell-based meat or clean meat. So the nutrition's probably the same, but there's huge benefits to the world in terms of health.
Yeah, in other ways. That's so interesting, especially about I think it's 80% of the antibiotics that are produced, at least in this country, go to agriculture and go to livestock. So what I'm hearing from you then is that many, many, many animals will not have to be locked up and used for their life, for beef, hopefully for dairy. We could talk about that. But so there'll be many fewer animals that will be exploited. But it sounds like you still do need, and this is for the ethical vegans who are listening, who are still, we've talked about this on our show, and people are really open to the idea of clean meat, but they might be a little less open, the vegans, if they knew that you still needed one animal per 100,000 pounds of meat. So I'm hoping that at some point you just need to go to your chicken who's happily in the pasture in the backyard and just take a little swab from her cheek. Is that where y'all are sort of aiming for, instead of having to have maybe thousands and thousands instead of hundreds of thousands of animals?
Yeah, ultimately, I don't see there being a need for like farms of animals that you would need to take cells from, right? It's a couple of animals every so often to produce just massive amounts of meat because of the power of these stem cells to produce many, many more cells, and the technology that's taken from the pharmaceutical industry. It's a very efficient process. And I think ultimately when you think about plant-based meat and the amazing things that are happening there with some of these newer plant-based meat products and the cell-based meat industry, I see no reason why in the future, in our lifetimes, we won't see a system where we take meat from both of those sources, and there are no more of these massive destructive farms that house so many animals.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.